The too long didn't watch version of this video, Josh Jacobs is a good player, and the Packers don't need him. Grossi Posse Packer Nation, welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you're not a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today we look at a highly requested individual for our draft prospect breakdown, and that is a good old Alabama running back, Josh Jacobs. Before we get into that, I want to do a big shout out and thank you. I want to thank you for everything, my Patreon. Thank you to all my Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy for the support. Check that out if you want to see some coolio rewards and if you would like to support me besides hurling internet insults at my face anonymously. Now, this video is going to be a smidge different than the usual draft prospect breakdown. And the reason is, looking at the tape of Josh Jacobs, looking at the stats, and we'll go through that, the guy's a good player, right? He's basically the consensus pick for the top running back within the draft. He's projected to go at the end of the first round, maybe slip into day 2, but he's going to go and most likely be a starter somewhere, right? And so that's not really up for debate. If we want to talk about the negatives real quick, just to get it over with, his blocking could use some work, and he never was that starting running back for Alabama. They obviously used a committee, and they rotated him in and out. And so that's that. The experience there, even though he has 3 years of experience, the amount of attempts and the amount of carries that he got is pretty insignificant, but he's been able to make the most of those. And let me explain what I'm going to be talking about. So in 2016, for example, played 14 games, had 85 attempts for 567 yards with 4 touchdowns, averaging about 6.7 yards per carry, which is pretty impressive. And even in the passing game, 14 receptions for 156 yards. 2017, played 11 games, 46 attempts, so almost half of what he had the year prior. 284 yards, 1 touchdown, was averaging about 6.2 yards per carry, 14 receptions, for 168 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then finally in 2018, where he got the majority of his attempts, 15 games, 120 attempts, 640 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry, 20 receptions, 247 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So if there's anything that you take out of that is he didn't get a whole lot of actual carries. Just for some comparison for your pleasure, Aaron Jones this year didn't play, right? The full season, was, being swapped in and out with Williams, had a total of 133 attempts, and while obviously in college football they play less games, but even with the 15 games, 120 attempts. The total attempts that are carries that he has had in his 3 years at Alabama is 251 carries. Saquon Barkley last year had 261 in 1 year, and they obviously didn't make the playoffs. So that's what I mean by this guy obviously does not have a whole lot of attempts under his belt, which you can see as a negative, right? Because maybe of lack of experience, that he's never been that workhorse back that they had in Alabama. Obviously didn't fully rely on him. But you could also look at it from another angle in that he's still, even being a rotational player, is still like the overall consensus of the best back in the draft. And there's other Alabama running backs who are also within this draft. And on top of that, he doesn't have a whole lot of wear and tear. I mean, you're getting a guy who's super duper fresh. He's not dealing with injuries. And so those are some positives. In addition, taking a look at his tape, right, he's able to hit the hole quickly. He's a power runner. He's tough to bring down. He has decent hands as a receiver as well. He's also very patient. He allows the blocks to develop. And he has pretty damn good yards per carry, right? 6.7, 6.2, and 5.3. That's not anything to shake your head at. Those are pretty damn good stats. Now, didn't do anything at the combine. His pro day, he ran a 4.62 40-yard dash, which people were expecting it to be a little bit faster, but it shouldn't crush his projection. He still will most likely, if he gets out of the first round, he will definitely be, I think, within the top 15 picks in the next day for day 2. So I'm saying all of these things. There's not too many negatives. The guy is coming out of college pretty damn fresh. Why shouldn't the Green Bay Packers draft him? Well, quite honestly, there's not a need. So if you were going to draft him, because there's only two places you could potentially draft him, you're not going to spend a 12 on him, and that's at 30, or you're going to pick him up in day 2, like in the second round, that's going to be your pick. Considering all the needs that the Green Bay Packers have, and considering how defensive heavy this draft is, how we could get a dynamic wide receiver or a tight end, the fact that you want to draft a running back, I gotta say, like, personally, that's one of the biggest head scratchers in the questions that I've gotten from fans. And the reason I'm kind of siding with not needing Josh Jacobs is because, one, there's definitely better people to pick, and I'm not talking about running back, I'm talking about all the other positions we need, but we already got our running backs. And even if you want to say running backs plural, we got Aaron Jones. And now some of you might say, well, Tom, he's been injured for the past 2 seasons. Sure, but even Matt LaFleur has come out and said that we are going to utilize both Jones and Williams. And Jones last year, even only playing 12 games, 133 attempts, 728 yards, 8 touchdowns, averaging about 5.5 yards per carry. So every single bit of that, except the touchdowns, Aaron Jones beat out Josh Jacobs last year, and he played 3 less games. And then Jamal Williams played 16 games, obviously didn't start all of them, 153 attempts, 556 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 3.6 yards per carry. Obviously, I would like that to be increased, the average gain, but the thing is, like, we're already going to be rotating these players in and out. And this kind of production, especially with Aaron Jones, was under an offense that didn't give a crap about the running game. How many times did I sit behind this desk last year going, hey, are we going to give the ball to Aaron Jones? Hey, remember when we should give the ball to Aaron Jones? Hey, that one time, we should go back and give the ball to Aaron Jones. So we have, in my opinion, our power horse running back, and we have the guy to rotate him out with, being Jamal Williams. And while, again, you might point to Josh Jacobs, like, he has some returner experience, which we can always use plenty of. Like, again, even out of the 15 games that he played this year, 11 of them were only single-digit carries. So he's not going to be a workhorse. He definitely wouldn't be in Green Bay. So he would just be another rotational player. So at the end of the day, my question to you, the Packers Nation, is, are we going to spend a first-round draft pick at number 30 or an early second-round draft pick on a rotational player? For running back, it just doesn't make sense to me. So this is, again, Josh Jacobs, good football player, will probably be a good football player somewhere else. But again, he's, in my opinion, he's not like one of those generational talent guys. He wasn't even the star in Alabama. So my consensus is we don't need a running back. We don't. If you want to pick one up like later in the draft, sure, go for it. But first and second round, that ain't it. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossiComedy, at all the social medias you see below, at Tom Grossi Comedy. And you can also check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, and of course here on YouTube 5 times a week. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode featuring another highly requested tight end. And then on Friday, round 1 mock draft. Let's do it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.